Welcome back to Ask Rad Rat. This is a series I do where I answer your questions about skateboarding and skateboarding related topics. Start thinking up some ones to put in the comments at the end of the video. So today we're talking with Spartan Accepted, who wants to know, what are your opinions on skate companies not made by skaters, just random people trying to make money off skateboarding? So the way you phrase it, if they're just trying to make money, then obviously that's not very cool. I think it's important to have passion about what you're doing, but to be realistic, not every invention or engineering feat in skateboarding is going to be done by someone who is a skateboarder. And so I have an example. I used to be sponsored by a wheel company called Better Skateboarding, and I still have some of their wheels. This was like 10 years ago. They're out of business now. The reason I still have some is because they lasted forever. And what happened, not 100% on the story anymore, it's been so long, but the guy who started the company, he basically stumbled on this formula while working on something else. And when he developed this formula, he realized that it would be perfect for skateboarding. You know, it had the right rebound, the right, anti-flat spotting qualities and things like that. And he just realized, like, this has got to be out there in skateboarders' hands. It was coming from an honest place, as far as I could tell in my interactions with him, but he wasn't a skateboarder. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And there's always going to be people who are able to come in from the outside and do something in a different way. So an example, maybe not a good one, would be the guy's, what's his name? Schrock, Andy Schrock, who he is a skateboarder, obviously, but he came into the industry kind of as an industry outsider and did things differently, built his team differently, and was successful. I think it's definitely possible that someone might want to come into skateboarding who thinks it's cool and is passionate about it, but just isn't an active person. I don't know. It's sort of a case-by-case thing. If you just want to build your own deck brand and do nothing interesting but put your own graphics on it, and you don't have anything to do with skateboarding, then that's not cool. But it's not a black and white thing. You can't just say, that guy doesn't skate, he's out of here. Because there's a lot more to it than just the passion and the art side of it. So, I don't know, case by case again, but I think it's definitely possible that a non-skater-owned brand could be a legit, honest company. All right, my next question is from Gordo, who just asked, could you talk about the hardness of skateboard wheels? So back in the day when I first started skating, it seemed like the only things you could get were about 98A to 101A, and technically 101 is off the scale, it only goes up to 100, but very hard wheels, like the hardest you can get. And the thing about hard wheels is that they have a lot of advantages. They keep your speed better because they don't squish, they slide easier, but it's not always the right thing. So I grew up in a really rough rough surfaces. It was in Michigan, like parking lots, even if they were brand new, a year later, all the ice from the winter would make them all horrible. And so I would skate outside, I would skate down a hill or something, and when I was done, my legs would be shaking because I just like vibrated out of control the whole way down the hill, and then I'm like numb and tingly. Like that was too hard of a wheel for me. So a softer wheel, it doesn't slide as good, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because you might want to be able to carve a little better. But it'll absorb impact or vibrations and things like that, which will help you go faster in certain circumstances. So the thing about harnesses is that you really just need to get something that's appropriate for where you're skating and try a few different things. Maybe having that extra slide is really worth it for you because you're really in the blunts or something like that. But try a few different things. Don't just commit to something right away and then do it for the next 10 years, not realizing you've been wrong. Also, harnesses are not the whole story. The size of the contact patch on a wheel can be a big thing to keep in mind. Also, if they're threaded or not. So these wheels, they do have threading on them, so they actually slide even easier than they would otherwise because you're only really riding on these threads and not on the whole wheel. And that helps getting over rocks and stuff too. So there's a lot more to keep in mind, but I used to just get the cheapest things you can get, but that's not really the best thing to do. Try out your friends' boards and see what works best. All right, my last question is the big one. Was there a reason for the tiny wheel fad? Was it fashion or function? And this is from VL Skate. So in my research, I did a little bit, I found that they used to be called bearing condoms back in the day. And if you see some of these pictures, like they are literally just a little bit bigger than the wheel. They'll get down to like 38 millimeters, which is unheard of. I have 56s, I think. 56s on one board and 58s on the other one. So like it's not even close to what you would skate these days. And they had a few advantages. First was switching grinds. So back in the day, we're talking like 91, 92, 93, switching grinds was a big deal. So you would do a nose slide and then pop the wheel over and do a crook. Or you would crook and then pop this wheel and then that wheel and do like a fakie crook. You know, like switch it over. And that kind of stuff is a lot easier with tiny wheels. Also, a lot of slappy stuff on curbs. A lot more was grindable. You could grind really tiny stuff because your wheels wouldn't roll while the truck was grinding. So getting into slappies, switching grinds, like curb dancing kind of stuff, was a bit easier on them. But the other big thing was just having a lower center of gravity, making it easier to do flip tricks. So like having low trucks these days is about as far as you would want to go to take advantage of that. But with your board being lower, it's more compact and it flips a little bit easier, which is weird because they were riding like 8.75s at the time. Which you would think making the board thinner would be the first thing you would do, but instead they went for tiny wheels, which helped a little bit. Probably not that much, but it's a little more stable. If you're on perfectly smooth ground, it would be a little bit easier to do some of that really technical stuff that was coming out. But they did have a ton of downsides. So being a lot smaller, they would have less surface area and they would get flat spots easier because, you know, there's less wheel to go around if you're doing the same trick over and over. So there's a company that would sell their wheels in a 6-pack at the time. You know, the tiny wheels, they'd come in a 6-pack because they knew you would probably destroy 2 of them pretty quickly. So that was one of the big problems. The other obvious problem is cracks and rocks. You can barely get over anything with them. And also the other big thing is speed. So I've read before that one of the things that made vert die out was these tiny wheels. Like you couldn't keep speed. You ended up doing a lot of lip tricks because it was too hard to get all the way up, you know, and get a lot of airtime. And I don't know how true that is. I want to do a video about that in the future, but not being able to keep speed, not being able to ride over cracks and rocks, it was not worth it, and they didn't last very long. But I think the theory there was to just get that little bit of an extra boost for that technical stuff. Definitely not worth it though. Some companies are starting to go back and get a little bit smaller, but I don't think they'll ever get to that point again. So that's it for this time. If you have any more questions, put them in the comments below or on Twitter or Instagram. You can find links to those in the description. Thank you for all these questions. I've been staying really busy with them, and I'm really happy to get these. So ask them below, and in the meantime, here are some more videos you might want to check out. Thank you for watching.